feedback or response to anything. So I mean, it sends a message to me that these guys they're just a screwed up mess, and getting to where they want to get is I just
even Hitler called his movement spiritual.
Oh yeah, well it was out of the proper nature.
And Tim Turner's doing just the same thing. I mean, this is not going to be an evangelical jubilee. This is not going to be a card-carrying Christian country. Okay, it's just not, because that's pure religion and bullshit.
Well, it is, and unfortunately, there's one gentleman who seems to purport that that's what he wants to do. So, and that's
how can one man make a decision for everybody else?
Yep.
Who the hell would want that decision?
Okay. Well,
who in God's name would want that?
All right. Well, I guess we did get a report here yesterday through law enforcement channels that there has been a bulletin put out to local law enforcement that they're to assume if they stop a vehicle that includes members of the Republic that they're armed and dangerous, that there is an incident that occurred in which a couple of de jure grand jury members shot some officers. I don't know what's the details behind that.
That's old news. That's old stuff.
It just came out yesterday.
They tried pulling that when I met him in Houston, and that was Jerry Kane, if I'm not mistaken. And it was just total bullshit. I mean, they're starting to they're setting the field for engagement.
They being the de facto, or they being the Turner side, or both?
Nope. Tim Turner has been so sloppy in his operation, he's given them all that ammunition. They're going to use it because that is the beginning of the setup to where they can engage everybody involved in this with extreme prejudice. And when I say extreme prejudice, I mean put your hands up. Pow.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, fortunately, I have no involvement with the Republic. They tried making me an ambassador, and, that's all fine, great, and dandy, but I didn't need it. They just gave it to me. I didn't need it. There's nothing I could use it for, because it does not exist. I don't need that to attract girls. It's not the way I do things.
Well, I guess it still goes back to the fundamental question, Richard, of what's the plan? I mean, is we just going to stand on the sideline and let the government collapse and passively hope that there's something that's going to keep the place from going into anarchy?
No, I think Glenn Beck's a lot going on right now. Glenn Beck is more well organized, and I don't have a plan. I don't have one, and I don't know if there is one. I'm the funding connector. I'm not the planner.
Just changing subject a little bit with you here, I really feel good about Jerry. I like Jerry. I like the folks he has with him. Any comments on that?
Well, I just would want to say do your research.
Okay.
Check him out completely.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that as a friend. Remember, Tim Turner made very, very large statements. Jerry's statements are even bigger. And even I have to take everything he says with a grain of salt. So, and of course, it's convenient for him that all of his files are so-called sealed and locked. And I do have some verification from some of the sovereigns as to that he is a UN-authorized bond buyer. But if you go on the internet and hit his name, you'll see that he does show up on certain lists and stuff, and and he'll explain why he's on those lists. But I can't. You'd have to go to him. I'm still waiting for funding from Jerry for myself. Okay.
How long has that process been in hold or waiting for?
6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 weeks I've been waiting to get money that's been promised. So I don't think Jerry's going to be the source of funding, not without strings being attached. Even though he offers, and he's got a generous heart. I mean, the guy's got a great heart, and he's got some wonderful ideas, and he's a brilliant man. He's more brilliant than any other man I've met so far, being his background. And, the guy's got a great sense of humor. I mean, he's a neat guy. He's different than everybody else. If you know his history and you read about him, you'll understand that that everything about Jerry is different and special. I mean, even his blood is different than ours, because he's got twice the amount of oxygen in his blood than we do naturally. So that in itself says a lot. But, even the most brilliant men in the world can sit around and make very big promises and not be able to keep them.
Okay.
So, what people are you in support of? I mean, who's supporting you? I mean, is there
nobody.
something that started up here?
I'm sorry. Say again, Richard. I didn't get that.
Is there something that can be started up here with the Republic that could be worth funding?
Well, there's. Let me ponder this for just a second. I believe the answer to the question is yes. I don't think that what transpired here in Utah is as evil as everyone seems to purport it to be. But again, I was on the very fringes of it. I wasn't involved in any of the substance or the details. Never saw the documents that came out of there. But I know that there was a bunch of representatives from Congress. Say again?
Were you at the meeting?
Technically, probably yes. But when they had the committee that was working on the documents, was not involved. I'm not a member of the House or the Senate, so they physically secured them in the building. So I didn't go in during any of the discussions, the debate, the development of the documents. I was the owner of the building, but I didn't go in. Once they convened things after Saturday night, and once they got down to the real business at hand on Sunday, no, I was not involved at all. A lot of the stuff that took place on the recruiting side and the informational side on Friday night, Saturday, was not involved at all. I was doing other things. So the bottom line is, I could not tell you what's in the documents that are supposed to go to The Hague, because I don't know. I've never read them. I haven't seen them.
Who wrote them?
Well, I think Tim probably came up with some drafts. There was a group that met on Saturday afternoon that worked through a second pass on them, and then they presented them to the joint House and Senate committee to go through and fix them. And I think sincerely that those guys did what they thought was the best thing for them to do. I don't, there's the perception that Tim Turner was dictating all this and stuff as a dictator type personality. I don't believe that was the case, but they sought counsel. They spent a lot of time discussing some issues and items, but and I think honestly, naively, that I think there was a legitimate effort on the part of the people that came out here to do what they felt needed to be done, as requested by Tim, in the way that they felt they needed to do it. Now, I know that there is a group that are very dissatisfied with Tim. Terry Hinkle and Dave Ritzenthaler and Richard Ritzenthaler, and I know there was a group that going back to the Virginia days of when we met back in Virginia, and set up an executive committee, and then they had the rift with Tim and Regan and Tom, and they split off, and a bunch of the guys split off at that point in time and went a different way. Is that resurrectable? I just don't know. I mean, I haven't had. I've talked to Dave Ritzenthaler a couple of times. I had a brief conversation with Terry Hinkle about 3 weeks ago on, she seemed to have some insight into the funding situation, and I had to make a decision on this building. Do I keep sitting on this thing and feeding it, or do I sell it? And
God, how much does it cost you a month to keep that thing alive?
$30,000.
Oh, dude, get your money back.
Yeah.
Get your money back. This government's not going to, this so-called government that they're trying to form is not going to have the money to seat that building. When I saw the building, I fell in love with it. Okay? I designed a security system for it in 20 minutes and handed that off to Tim. But, I could see where you're coming from here, and I can appreciate it. But if there's any bit of advice I could give you, sell the building. Get your money out of it. Get your money out of it, dude. You from my understanding, you bought that thing for a song, and you're going to make a hell of a profit. Even if you had to spend a year of keeping it alive, you're going to make a hell of a profit. But my God, it's the winter, and that place could explode if it doesn't have the heat on.
It's a gorgeous building. It's a gorgeous building, and I did buy it for $1,217, Richard. I did buy it for that price.
That's what I think you and I've talked about this before. But you know what? There's something I wanted to ask, and this is something that's been puzzling me all along. And, the statement that Tim made just recently that I'm hearing, and I try to stay on the outside of all this information because it's just too much crap. It's like it's like a bunch of bully boys that took over a sandbox. Nobody wants to play with them, so they take their toys and go to another sandbox and see if they can excite somebody by being bullied to play with them in the sandbox. It's nuts. But now I'm at the understanding that even all of the people that were thrown out, that were kicked out and abused by Tim Turner and those whatever cronies he's got running the show, that all these names are still going to be included when they take the documentation forward to The Hague. What is the purpose in that? Can you tell me? He knows he will not return to this country if he goes to The Hague with any of that documentation, especially without any funding and no military and no support of any persons inside the de facto government and not having an ass to stand on. They'll throw him in a frickin' gulag for the rest of his days.
Yeah.
And he'll hurt everybody in this country if he goes. If he tries to do that. I'm convinced the man wants to commit suicide because he can't get anything done. And he's just continually looking like crap. Because he can't get anything done.
Well, I also have to. I'm sorry,
Carl,
say again, Richard.
Why take everybody else down with him that he fired and got rid of and used and abused and stole their ideas and then got rid of them? His method is if you don't vote the way he wants you to vote, they'll remove you and put somebody in there that's a yes man. What the hell do you think we got now? We have a bigger, more funded version of that right now running this country that still don't listen to the people.
Well, yeah, even as of 3 days ago, they still don't listen.
Well, you want to know what my thoughts are? Let me give it to you in short. I believe that Tim Turner and Tom Schultz still have an agreement together. And their job, and this is what it's looking like. I'm just putting a puzzle together here. But I go out and look for the pieces first. Tim's job was FEMA and Homeland Security. I believe that they are going to use this scenario to try to put as many people in those FEMA detention centers and retention centers as they can.